Hey guys, it's Fallen here, bringing you my 9.1 Shadowlands Warrior discussion. We're going to be looking at the DPS specs for Warriors today, but this is not a deep dive. This is going to be more of a basic look of the class and an overall of how it's playing and how we feel about it. Alright, so let's start off by saying that both specs are viable for any of the content you're trying to accomplish in the game right now. They both have their strengths, they both have their weaknesses, so let's jump into them, okay? So for the current patch, Arms is just great at sustained damage, extremely strong on 2-target cleave. If we have to stop DPS for any of the mechanics, run out, run back in, it's not super detrimental or bad to Arms to have to do that. Now Fury, on the other hand, really excels in sustained multi-target cleave, and the execute phase of encounters is where Fury's really gonna shine. But if you ever have to stop DPS, or if you ever get a mechanic where you've got to run out, stop, come back in, it's extremely bad for Fury right now. And we're gonna jump in and we're gonna look at both the specs, why each of them play the way they do, go over the pros and cons. Alright, let's take a look into Arms. Arms is doing really well right now for two main reasons. One reason is the fights in Sanctum of Domination just work really well for Arms. You either have 2-target fights, you have fights where there's an add or an extra target you can hit for short windows that aren't up all the time, so they're perfect for sweeping strikes. Or there's Sylvanas where they don't have an execute phase. And then the other thing going on for Arms right now is we actually have a lot of synergy working within the class. We're running Painbreaker Legendary, where Mortal Strike has a 25% chance to cause Colossus Smash on the target. But we're also running the Conduit Mortal Combo, to where Mortal Strike has a chance to cast a second Mortal Strike. And at 239 item level for that Conduit, it's a 17% chance. So what's working great for Arms right now is your Colossus Smash up time is very, very high. Now, when you add that in, it makes Arms more of a sustained spec than it is for big bursts in those every 45 seconds for your Colossus Smash windows. You have more Colossus Smash uptime, you're constantly doing the Colossus Smash damage, you're way more level-headed with your damage. It's not as spiky. What this also causes is that if you get mechanics, if you have stop DPSs, if you just have to just do something that's not hitting the boss, you're not punished for it. You're not punished for not spending rage like Fury is because of anger management. Everything on Arms works well. 45 seconds for Colossus Smash. So for every other Colossus Smash, you have your avatar, which is a 1.5 cooldown. So it's there for every single one. So Arms works really well for the consistent damage. Also, we have fights like the 9, 2-target fight for the beginning of it. Super great for sweeping strikes. You have Sylvanas. Doesn't have an execute phase, but that's okay. Arms isn't punished by that because we're super strong throughout the whole fight. Execute phase is just the cherry on top for us. Let's start with Covenants first. So if we're playing Arms Warrior, basically you're going to want to go Night Fae, okay? So Arms got a buff in 9-1, Mortal Strike, Overpower, Deep Wounds, and Execute, 10% damage. Huge buff. But Condemn didn't, right? So this really kind of didn't do anything for Venthyr, while the other 3 specs got a buff to it, alright? So Venthyr and Kyrian are both behind Night Fae, but are still viable. And Necrolord, if you're looking for personal DPS, is not the way to go, but Necrolord brings a huge amount of DPS to your entire group as a whole. But overall, we're going to want to run Night Fae. Alright, so we've picked our Covenant for our Warrior, and now we're going to choose our Soulbinds. For Night Fae, for a single target, you are going to go with Naya, and then for AoE, where you constantly have new ads coming in, or Mythic Plus, you're going to go with Corian. For Venthyr, you're going to go with Najita, and then for Kyrian, you go Pelagos. For our Conduits, we are going to go with Mortal Combo, and we are going to go with Crash of Ramparts. For any Covenant that's not playing Venthyr, for Venthyr, you're still going to want to go Mortal Combo, but then you'll need a sim between Crash of Ramparts and the one where execute damage increases the damage of execute stacking. For our Legendaries, we have 2 Legendaries we use. For single target, you go with Painbringer, and you're going to want to craft it on your waist. This makes your Mortal Strike have a 25% chance to apply Colossus Smash to your target. This goes really well in combo with our Conduit Mortal Combo, because our Mortal Strike has a chance to cast a second Mortal Strike, and the second casted one can still apply the Colossus Smash debuff. For your other Legendary, you're going to go with Signet of the Torrent Kings on your ring, and this will be your Mythic Plus Legendary. Alright, so on to Fury, and we're going to go a little bit more into detail into Fury, because a lot of people thought we were going to be playing Fury this tier instead of Arms, but just the way everything came out, that's why we're mostly all playing Arms right now for Raid. But for Fury, you pretty much got your 2 choices for your Covenants. You can go Night Fae, which is super strong for Mythic Plus, or if you're worried about raiding, or if that's your main focus, then you're going to go Venthyr. You're pretty much going to follow the same Soulbind traits. You're going to go for Venthyr, the first one, Najita, and then for Night Fae, you'll go Naya for single target, and then you'll go Corian for AoE, Mythic Plus. Conduits, super simple. You're going to go Depths of Insanity for the longer Recklessness timer. If you're going Venthyr, you're going to go Ashen Juggernaut, because we're going to just be condemning all the time. If you're going to go with Night Fae, you'll probably go Destructive Reverberations for your second Potency Conduit. Okay, so let's take a look into Fury, and this will show us why we're mainly playing Arms in Sanctum of Domination and not Fury. So with Fury, you're playing Venthyr, you're playing Condemn. Fury is really punished by having to do mechanics that require you to step away from the boss, or any time during the boss when you have to stop DPS. Fury is all about reducing the time that Recklessness is on cooldown. If you have more uptime on the boss, you're spending more rage, you're getting more time removed off of the cooldown of Recklessness with your anger management. As well, in Condemn windows, you increase the time your current Recklessness is up by 2 more seconds. So Sinful Surge, anger management, you've got close to 100% uptime of Recklessness while you have a Condemn window, which is going to be your 100% to 80 and your 35% to 0. So on paper, this looks really, really good. 55% of the fight, you are in Condemn window, you have Recklessness uptime. But in practice, Fury starts to fall short. And let's take a look at a few things, right? Anytime you have to stop DPS during a Condemn window is an even bigger loss than it was before, because you're not getting the extra 2 seconds added onto your Recklessness, plus the extra rage you're spending for anger management to bring Recklessness off cooldown. If we lust during a Condemn window, you're in the Condemn window for a shorter amount of time, so your Recklessness uptime percentage of the boss fight, or the boss's health, is going to be the same, but the boss fight will be less. If we look at sims, they're a great tool for you to check your character, but sims are perfect scenarios and don't take all of the factors into consideration. The first thing you need to think about is the boss's health is not linear. 100% to 90% of the boss's health is much quicker than 90% to 80%. And that's because everybody in the raid is using cooldowns on pool. but a little bit later in the fight, people don't have their cooldowns up, right? So everybody's doing less damage there. So again, at the beginning, it's not linear. The boss is going to lose more health per second during Lust than without Lust. Everybody has 25% increased haste. They're doing more. When you sim yourself, sims correlate the time and the boss health. So 100 to 80% is 20% of the boss health and 20% of the fight. And 35% to 0% is 35% of the boss's health and 35% of the fight. So in Sims, you'll be in Condemn window for 55% of the boss's health and 55% of the fight. But in reality, it'll be 55% of the boss's health, but it's not going to be 55% of the fight. A 5-minute sim will assume you can execute Condemn for 2 minutes and 45 seconds. That's 55% of 5 minutes. But in reality, it's going to be a lot closer to 2 minutes 15 seconds, 2:20. And that's because boss health isn't linear. Now, there is an argument to be made that for Venthyr, you have more survivability. And that's because you have the absorb you get from condemning a target. It does less damage to you, right? It absorbs a little bit of it, right? And unarguably, the hardest part of a fight is the execute phase. It's usually when you have a lot of overlaps or anything like that, you're getting close to the enrage. But one of the biggest things working against Fury right now is that very few fights in the current raid are pure single target, or the ones that are pure single target, you can't abuse 100% cooldown time for execute phase, for condemn phase, because you're just not in it long enough. If we were seeing 7-8 minute single target fights, Venthyr Fury would be the way to go. But because a lot of fights have an extra add, 2-target cleave, or the way they're designed, just plainly, Fury is falling behind because you cannot abuse the 100% uptime of Recklessness. Thanks guys for hanging out with me. If y'all have any questions, feel free to jump in stream with me while I'm streaming and ask them there, or jump in my Discord and just ping me there, and I'm more than happy to answer those. My weak auras can be found in my Discord as well for anybody who wants them. Again, I hope you all have a great day, and I hope this helped bring a little bit more light into why we're playing what we're playing for Sanctum of a Domination for our spec, and hope this may help you make some decisions on what you want to play. Remember, both specs are viable, and you really can play whatever Covenant you want. Just as a Mythic Raider, I'm going to be playing what is performing at the very top so I can push harder to help my entire team out so we can get our accomplishments and achieve our goals of clearing the raid on Mythic. Again, if you have any more questions, jump in stream or holler at me in my Discord. I'm always available to help. I hope you all have a great day.